You need to ask yourself, are you ready for the journey? Are you ready for the hard work? Are you ready to make sacrifices? Running a business can be tough, so it makes sense that managing your business accounts shouldn't get in the way of what you do best. But it's easy with Sage accounting tools on your smartphone, your tablet, or your laptop. It's accounting for wherever you are on your business journey. Go to sage.co.uk/journey. Sage, accounting for the journey.
It's that time of the week when former football and sports stars share their stories. It happens all right here, right now, on Thursday Night Tailgate. With your hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari. Guys, have some fun. Enjoy the guests. Take it away.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Greetings, everybody, and thank you for joining us again this week on Thursday Night Tailgate, your home for interviews and conversations with the greatest players in the history of the NFL and the home of the NFL Alumni Association and the Gridiron Greats. Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazzari here with you over the next couple of hours. TNT is brought to you tonight by the great folks over at Kyvan Foods, Coastal Orthopedics, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and the French Lick Resort. And tonight, Bob and I, we got 5 more great guests in store for you. We're looking forward to sharing with you tonight. And first up is going to be former Dallas Cowboys running back, later head coach of the Broncos, Giants, and Falcons, and that's Dan Reeves. It's always a lot of fun when Coach joins us here on the show. So we got a lot to get into with him tonight, including the Falcons this season, and also curious to get his thoughts on what he'd do if he were the Cowboys head coach when Tony Romo was healthy and ready to come back. What would he do? We'll get his thoughts on that and a whole lot more when Coach is with us about 15 minutes from now. At the bottom of the hour, you know former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins joins us every week to go through our 5-star picks of the week. And my goodness, Tony remains hot with his picks, so we look forward to catching up with Tony about 30 minutes from now. And then we'll get a return visit from former head coach and another former head coach, right, and Georgia Bulldogs head coach Ray Goff is going to be back with us. We'll get his thoughts on UGA this season and what he thinks they need to do to 4-4 UGA. That doesn't fly here in the state of Georgia. So curious to get Ray's thoughts on what they need to do to improve. Looking ahead to probably next season at this point. Then we'll kick off hour number 2 with super agent and TNT Hall of Famer Leigh Steinberg going to be back with us. So you know how great Leigh is. So look forward to getting a lot of thoughts from Leigh on this football season. And then we're going to round out the show with a long-awaited return of former LSU and Miami Dolphins defensive back Lifford Hobley, heading into the LSU-Alabama matchup, this coming Saturday. Interested to get, Lifford's take on that game and the LSU head coaching situation. So we'll talk about that and a bunch more when Lifford joins us about 90 minutes from now. So we're going to have a lot of fun tonight, just like we do every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. So sit back, relax, and let us take your mind off everything else going on in your life for the next couple of hours. Let's get things started like we always do by bringing in my co-host, Mr. Bob Lazzari. Bob, good evening, my friend.
How's everything with you, Chris?
Oh, very well. Thank you, sir. So, Bob, before we get into all the football stuff, I got to get your thoughts on the World Series. What a great World Series we just experienced. And in my opinion, Bob, you've heard me say this a couple of times this year that, former Red Sox general manager, now Cubs president of baseball operations, Theo Epstein, he's got to go down, right, as the greatest general manager in the history of general managers at this point, right? He erased the Red Sox curse, now the Cubs curse, so 2 of the longest championship droughts in the history of any sport. He comes in a few years later, fixes all of that. Now he's got World Series titles with the Red Sox and Cubs. Greatest GM of all time, no?
It's got to be right up there, Chris. When you erase 2 well-known, long-time curses, that's beyond baseball. That's getting into like sainthood, isn't it? It's more than sport. It's beyond sports. So when he took over about 5 years ago, I believe 4 or 5 years ago, I guess it's been in Chicago. He basically said, gave the Cub fans a little bit to hang their hats on at the time, saying things like, just give me a few years, it's going to take a while to build this. And my goodness, he delivered. It was not easy. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. But my goodness, what a series, what a game last night, and a little bit sleep deprived today, Chris. But it was worth it, to see history made like that. It was something.
Yeah, it's and we've joked a lot, this season, Bob, about former Red Sox showing up, and playing well in different places. Obviously, we got the Theo Epstein piece. You look around the Cubs, right? And John Lester and David Ross with a big home run last night. Lester with the the relief appearance, but pitching well throughout the postseason and the regular season, of course, as well. And then you had Tito Francona on the other side with the Indians. But boy, when you look at the Red Sox or former Red Sox out having a great postseason, a great baseball season in general, and it's not limited to those two teams. We've seen them in other places too, like Josh Reddick with the Dodgers, who made the postseason. Boy, I don't know if it makes you wonder what the heck the Red Sox were thinking when they let these guys go, or it makes you happy. I guess it makes you happy to see those guys continue to have success in other organizations and play well. And not only congratulations to the Cubs, which certainly huge congratulations to the city of Chicago and the Cubs, but also to Tito Francona for what he did this season with the Cleveland Indians.
You make a good point, Chris, about guys like Lester and Lackey and Ross and et cetera, et cetera. I think if the Red Sox hadn't had those two recent championships, that's probably all you'd be hearing today. So, but yeah, things happen, Chris. Guys go somewhere else, and they're comfortable with managers. They're comfortable with each other, and that's something that you really can't dwell on too much. They're just gamers. Some of them are gamers, and Lackey and Lester, that's a good pair right there. And it was just fun to watch. It was an amazing series, and this goes beyond a sports story. Just the whole Chicago Cubs 108 years, and I had posted on my Facebook page, Chris. I grew up with a guy next door. He was a Cub fan, the father of my buddy, and every time we would talk about the Cubs, he had that resignation to his face. He was just not a happy man throughout his life. It wasn't all about sports to him, but every time you brought up baseball, it was always there with him, that curse. We can't win. Well, we can't do it. Well, he died 2 years ago, and he didn't get to see this. So I'm thinking today, smiling a bit. It's first thing I thought of last night, and I actually choked up a bit. And I guess everyone has stories like that, and that's what's magical about baseball and a night like last night. But my goodness, congrats to all those, especially the Cub fans who stuck with them all these years. I heard from so many of them today, and they're either still partying or they're in bed early tonight, Chris.
Right. And the same with me and Bob. Just one more, little story before we move on. But yeah, I heard a story about a guy who listened to the game last night up in Chicago on the grave of his father. Brought a radio out there and listened to the seventh game. Because his father didn't, and we heard similar stories, right, with our friends in Red Sox Nation who did, something similar after the Red Sox finally won, about, hanging, championship banners and stuff like that on the graves of their parents and friends and in-laws and all that sort of stuff, for the Red Sox fans who waited 86 years, but the same last night for the Cubs fans who waited 108 years. So again, congratulations to them. Good friend of mine, John Jordan, was a long-suffering Cubs fan his whole life, and congratulations to John. I sent him a note last night. Very happy for him and everybody in Chicago. So kudos to Theo Epstein and the Cubs and the people of Chicago. Good for you. It's all over now, and you can start what looks like it's going to be a great run for a great young team for many, many years to come.
How about Steve Bartman?
All right, Bob, let's go around the NFL a little bit. Let's talk about some things that we learned from Week 8. And, Bob, the highs and lows of the NFL season may be best personified by the Buffalo Bills. And, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago with Christine Lisi. They fired their offensive coordinator for some reason after Week 2 when they scored 31 points in a loss to the Jets. But after an 0-2 start, they ran off 4 straight wins, and suddenly, Bills Nation was talking playoffs again and feeling good about themselves, and now they've lost 2 in a row to the Dolphins and to the Patriots, and they've got games on the road against Seattle and Cincinnati coming up. So, Bob, what do you make of the Bills, and ultimately, do you think they'll be in or out of the playoff picture?
Well, Chris, they're a team that's, what's mind-boggling is you're right about the offensive coordinator. The Patriots have only scored 5 points more than Buffalo this year. I think Oakland's right in between them. But that's high, Chris. I mean, that's a high point total for that team. They're playing decent defense under Rex Ryan, but they're a team that's very, very hard to predict. They're not good within that division, and you almost get the feeling that every move they make is just trying to keep up with New England and trying to stay close to New England, because I think there is an awful lot of parity throughout the NFL this year. And you have teams, Chris, New England is going to be in. But there's a lot of teams that are 500 or close to 500. Your Cincinnati's, Baltimore's, Tennessee's, teams like that that are going to be right there, probably in Buffalo's territory come Week 15, Week 16. So I don't know what to make of this team, Chris. They're certain days they look like they're okay, and when they had gone on that little mini streak, people said, okay, Rex Ryan is the coach we paid for here and we wanted in Buffalo. Now they lose two. If they lose another one, Chris, you'll start hearing, they're not going to stay with New England. This season's going to be lost pretty soon. They're tough up there. And, again, an enigma Buffalo is, and it doesn't help that they're in that same division with New England. Never has, but I want to get your thoughts too, because to me they're impossible to figure.
Yeah, just like our friend Angelo Kane and Christine Lisi were talking about. You get excited, and Ange was so high going down. He went down to the game in Miami to watch the Bills, and then to see that loss. But yeah, I'm with you, Bob. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me what they go through. First of all, when Rex Ryan took over the team, the Bills were one of the top defenses in the league, and then Rex Ryan brought in his system, and they went from a top 5 defense all the way down into the 20s. And then, their offense this season, they score, the points they did against the Jets in a loss. And I get that, they started out the season 0-2, and they didn't make the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs under Rex Ryan, so maybe it's a panic move a little bit. But they jettison the offensive coordinator, and they score points, to your point, and they're playing well offensively. But this just as a team, you just can't figure out offensively from week to week, defensively from week to week, and then the use, and this is something Ange and I talking a lot about. Charles Clay was a tight end they brought over and signed to a nice contract, and he's a guy that has essentially disappeared. They hardly use the guy. So, and then injuries play into it and all those sorts of things. They don't have Sammy Watkins and all that sort of thing. But I don't think the offense is the problem. There's just something, and to your point, Bob, maybe enigma is the right word. We use it all the time with Clay Buchholz as Red Sox fans as an enigma. Maybe the whole Bills organization is an enigma because you just can't figure out what they're doing. And to that end, Bob, they're dusting off Percy Harvins now to come back out of retirement, which is another thing that sort of feels like a desperation move. A guy that was forced into retirement. He's had injuries and bad hips, and that sort of thing. Now I don't know if it's another desperation move to try to bring him back to see if he has anything left in the tank. But I guess the theme right now, Bob, for the Bills the whole season, to me, feels like a team that's making desperation move after desperation move. A head coach that probably knows his coaching career, at least in Buffalo, is on the line. Started feeling good about themselves after the 4 straight wins, but now 2 straight losses has probably got him back on the hot seat. But this is a team, Bob. To your point, just really difficult to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah, Chris, and Percy Harvin, you get the feeling that it wasn't that big of a shock. This was a guy that was only 28 years old, and just probably was just disgusted with his injuries, and probably started feeling good. And I remember him saying that he felt like he just can't compete with the injuries. But you figure once these guys heal up, and they still have youth on their side, and that guy was a playmaker in his earlier days, but you wonder with a knee being scoped, et cetera, if his whole strength was that incredible speed, and you wonder if he has anything left, and will the quarterback be able to get him the ball? That's a whole other thing, but I'm interested to see that again. But as we said, offense wasn't really their problem, Chris. So again, it's consistency with this team, and that usually comes down on the coach too.
Bob, let's move on to another thing that we saw earlier this week, and that's the trade between the Patriots and the Browns for linebacker Jamie Collins. The Patriots are going to get a compensatory pick, which they would have gotten, by the way, anyway, had Collins left as a free agent at the end of the season, and he is, his rookie contract is up. So essentially, they gave him away to the Browns for really nothing, the same thing they would have gotten. Patriots Pro Bowl safety, Devin McCourty said Collins, was a huge part of their defense, and that everyone on their defense was shocked when they heard the news about the trade. So he was fourth on the team in tackles this season and led them with 2 interceptions. He led the team last year in tackles. So this move, on top of trading away Chandler Jones in the offseason for Jonathan Cooper with the Cardinals, who was ultimately cut, speaks to those guys just not having something, it feels like, Bob, that Belichick wants or is looking for. Either that or he's trying, to send a message to the rest of their players. So, Bob, curious to get your thoughts on the Chandler, not only the Chandler Jones trade, but now the move to get rid of Jamie Collins as well.
Well, first of all, for all the people that were critical of the move, let me ask them one question. Do the Patriots usually make bad moves, Chris? Not really, right? So let me preface that with that. Number one. Number two, if Belichick is calling his shots, which he does all the time, number one, this guy was going to be gone at the end of the year. I think he rubbed Belichick the wrong way in a few different ways, Chris. Number one, he was asking for too much money. I think he turned down $11 million a year. That didn't sit well with Belichick. He was, we're hearing that he wanted Von Miller money, which is outrageous. Upwards of $115, $120 million, Chris. That's not going to happen on a team like New England, who prides themselves on team. And expanding on that, they think that he was inconsistent. Yeah, the numbers were there, Chris, and probably the most athletically gifted guy on that team. But what I've read and heard from people was that he tries to kind of sway from the team concept at times, and will go against defensive schemes and things like that, try to do things on his own. That does not cut it on a Belichick-type team. So, he's been inconsistent a little bit here, Chris. So you put all of that together, and the bottom line is you get Belichick a little perturbed. Where does he send you? To the worst place on the universe, Cleveland. So as far as football is concerned, right? So I think all of that, it's not just one little thing, Chris. I think it's just thing, and you never get the full story from New England anyway. But I think as trying to look on the inside of that kind of deal, that's where we're at there. You rub Belichick the wrong way. They were going to part pretty soon anyway. Why not do it now? And that's how he works.
Yeah, no, and I think you're exactly right, Bob. And to your point, I'd heard as well that he liked to freelance a little bit, and that's not how that's not how Belichick and the Patriots win games. You don't freelance and do things on your own. The scheme is the scheme, and your role is your role, right? Do your job. That's what we hear about Bill Belichick's. That's his phrase. Do your job. Well, you're not doing your job if you're freelancing a little bit, and to your point, getting outside of probably the team concept. So that's going to cost you your job in New England, and it cost him his job, and now he's with the Cleveland Browns. So to your first statement, Bob, yeah, the Patriots and Belichick don't make bad moves, and they don't make them for no reason. So it probably also sends a little bit of a statement to the rest of the players, like, follow the scheme, do your job, and you'll be here. If you don't, You're going to be playing in Cleveland. All right, everyone, like we do here every week on Thursday Night Tailgate, we want to send out a big thank you to our military personnel who are listening in around the world on the Armed Forces Radio Network. We cannot say thank you enough for doing what you do to protect all of us in our way of life. For everyone else listening in on the station or the app of your choice, we appreciate you so much, and we hope you'll join us in thanking our brave men and women in our military. If you happen to see one of our servicemen or women in your daily life, wherever you might be, the grocery store, the airport, a restaurant, just out and about, please stop for a moment and tell them thank you. They are our true heroes. We also want to thank our veterans for your service and the sacrifices that you and your families have made for us over the years. And a big thank you as well to Sean Cruz and all the wonderful folks over at the Armed Forces Radio Network. We are so honored that Thursday Night Tailgate is a part of your network. You can find our show by going to armedforcesradionetwork.org. TNT is brought to you tonight by the great folks over at Kaiven Foods, owned and operated by our good friend and former Bengals and Falcons tight end and TNT Hall of Famer Reggie Kelly. Folks, if you want to be king of the grill, it's a must that you use Kaiven Sweet Barbecue Sauce, ranked number 15 in the world by Barbecue Superstars. This barbecue sauce is a must for the big games your tailgating needs. It's available at select Walmarts and Kroger's throughout the eastern half of the country. 4 locations, online orders and recipes. Check out their website at Kaiven82.com. And Kaiven is spelled K-Y-V-A-N. And if your local Walmart doesn't carry the Kaiven Sweet Barbecue Sauce, we'll request it. I'm sure they'll be happy to add it to their shelves for you. TNT is also sponsored by Dr. Peter Candelora and the great folks over at Coastal Orthopedics. Folks, if you're an athlete or a weekend warrior and you're dealing with injuries or discomfort, wherever it might be, in your knees, your shoulders, your hips, or your other joints, whatever it is, please don't just live with it. Do what athletes do to get relief, and that's contact Dr. Peter Candelora. He will get you back to enjoying life. For more information or to schedule your consultation or your visit, please go online to athleteinjuries.com. Again, athleteinjuries.com. Baseball season, like you heard us just talk about, unfortunately it's over. But if you love the game and you start sort of jonesing for more baseball, well, go to the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory. They recently were welcomed into the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence Hall of Fame. They've got their annual Living Legends ceremony coming up Friday, November the 11th, where they'll be honoring Dave Winfield. And beyond that, the museum is just a very cool experience for everybody in your family. So please, check it out. You go to Louisville Slugger. It's a great place. It is a wonderful place for everybody in the family. To book your visit, go to sluggermuseum.com online to find out more information. And please, be sure to check out our friends over at the French Lick Resort. What a fantastic place to stay and play golf or simply relax and enjoy yourself. What a fantastic setting they have up there in Indiana. 2 championship golf courses, one designed by Pete Dye, the other by Donald Ross. The Pete Dye designed course hosted last year's Senior PGA Championship, plus they hosted the LPGA Legends Championship. The Donald Ross designed course was the site of Walter Hagen's PGA Championship victory all the way back in 1924. They got a great spa right there on site, and oh, by the way, my friends, a casino as well. To find out more information and to book your stay, go to FrenchLick.com. All right, now back with us and making his 4th appearance on the Kaiven Foods guest line is Dan Reeves. Let me remind you about Coach's background. He was born in Rome, Georgia, grew up in Americus, Georgia, where he played football, baseball, and basketball in high school. Played his college ball at the University of South Carolina, where he was a 3-year letterman, setting several records as a quarterback, and he also played right field on their baseball team. When he left South Carolina, he was their all-time passing leader. He was inducted into the Gamecocks Hall of Fame back in 1977 and the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame in 2006. Somehow, he was an undrafted free agent signed by the Dallas Cowboys in 1965, but also got an offer to play for the San Diego Chargers in the AFL and my hometown Pittsburgh Pirates to play baseball. He opted to play running back for the Cowboys from 1965 to 1972, rushed for nearly 2,000 yards and 25 rushing touchdowns, and added 1,700 more receiving yards and 17 receiving touchdowns. He was a part of the Cowboys' 1971 Super Bowl championship team and went on to become one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL with the Broncos, Giants, and Falcons, leading his team to a 190, 165, and 2 record in 4 Super Bowl appearances. He's become a wonderful friend of the show, and we are so honored that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Coach, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
You bet, Chris. Bob, how y'all tonight?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So, Coach, as a guy who grew up playing baseball, both, early on in life and in college, I got to get your quick thoughts on what an incredible World Series that we just saw, in particular Game 7 last night, may be one of the best Game 7s in baseball history. Your thoughts on what we saw from the World Series this year?
Well, I think you saw 2 great teams and should be seeing them for quite a while because they seem to be relatively young as well as good. So put on a great show. Go to 7 games and then go into extra innings in the 7th game. You can't get much better than that.
Agreed. So, Coach, it's, the Falcons got off to another hot start this season. Cooled a little bit recently. They're taking on the Bucs, obviously, tonight. What are you seeing from the Falcons that you think, they need to, do differently or better this season in order to get over the hump and find themselves back in a deep playoff run?
Well, they've got a lead, in the division now, and that's the key thing. And the only team that, beat them early in the season, first game of the season, they're playing tonight, and they can really put a big lead in the division if they can win the game tonight in Tampa Bay. And of course, Tampa has won 3 straight games from them, which is, a little unusual. But Atlanta's playing really well, particularly on the offensive side. The thing that they need to do is, first of all, stay healthy. As you know, in the latter part of the season, teams that get into playoffs, if they can stay healthy, they usually do a pretty good job. But then I think their defense has to improve. They're very young on defense. They play really hard. I think they will continue to improve. They must put a lot of pressure on the quarterback tonight, because the quarterback, Tampa Bay, is really, really outstanding quarterback.
And, Coach, when you talk about putting on pressure in the Falcons' defense, they're 25th overall so far this season. They're giving up 29 points a game. You talk about them being young and needing to put on pressure. Are you seeing something in particular from the defense that's leaving them vulnerable in those areas?
Well, I think that, as you said, the pass rush has been the thing. I do think they're improving. I think Vic Beasley, their number 1 draft choice several years ago, has gotten better and become a factor. And, they just need to continue to improve there. But they flouted around the things that you have control over defensively. I think they do. They just got to get better, and the experience of playing together and playing in Dan Quinn's defensive system, dictates that you fly to the football and get there and make things happen when you do arrive. And they're relying right now a great deal on turnovers to be a good defensive team. And when they start playing well enough, they can get some threes and out and put their offense back on the field quickly. They're going to be really good. And that offense, they just need best thing that another team can do to stop them is to frustrate them by sitting them on, keeping them on the sideline. So the defense has got to improve to get their offense back out on the field.
Bob, questions for Coach?
Hey, Coach, it's a pleasure and honor to speak with you again. And I want to take you back to your own playing days again. And, Coach, at 68, you tore the ligaments in your knee. And, again, going for that season, you were productive after that, Dan, but it seemed as if as time went on, it might have taken its toll. You were out of the NFL in your late 20s. Just want to know, what do you remember about that injury, Coach? I mean, with today's technology and everything, I'm sure it's a totally different thing. Back then, it was really, really a crucial thing. And but tell me, take me back to that injury, how it affected you, and if you would had it now, how much different it probably would have been.
Yeah, it probably would. Bob, I tore everything you can tear in your left knee. I got hit on a running play. I was going around in against the St. Louis Cardinals, and I got too close to an offensive guard, and defensive back came underneath the guard. I never saw him, and he caught me with my left leg completely planted and fully extended, and it just tore everything that you can tear in your left knee. And like you said, probably some of the surgery that they do now would have made it better. But I came out probably a little bit too early, because now they wait a good, at least a good year. When you have a surgery like that, I came back really the next season and got beat out by a young man named Calvin Hill. So I knew my career was coming to an end, because Calvin could fall for 4 or 5 yards. So he did a great job, and get beat out in '69, and that's when Coach Landry asked me to be a player coach, and started and did that for like 3 years as a player coach, and really got involved in coaching, which I never really thought about until Coach Landry gave me that opportunity.
And I think a lot of people forget how versatile a running back you were, Coach. I mean, you caught 70 passes in '66, '67. Again, this was prior to the injury. But was that something that was stressed by the coaching staff, that you had to be that versatile, or was that just something you brought to the table, Coach, as a good athlete?
Well, really and truly, Coach Landry changed our offense from 65 to 66. He moved Mel Renfro, who was a all-pro defensive back and also leading punt return in the league, moved him over to offense. And we started doing, multiple formations where we split the running back outside, really to try to isolate the fastest man on the earth, Bob Hayes, to get some one-on-one situations for him. And so I was playing behind Mel. we'd also come out the backfield in motion, running routes and so forth. So the fact that I could do that, certainly helped. And then Mel Renfro got hurt, and I was able to step in and had a great year there in '66. And, like you said, I got hurt in '68 and then got beat out in '69 and went into player coach in '70. So, I think having the ability to run routes, catch the ball. I've never done it before, but, having that ability is just something that, I was blessed with when, playing when I was young.
Coach, staying with your playing days a little bit, and you were a part of the Cowboys Super Bowl teams back in 1970 and 71, winning it over the Dolphins in 71 and Super Bowl VI. And for the younger fans who think the Super Bowl has always been the spectacle that we see now, what was it like? What we see now compared to the Super Bowls that you were a part of?
Well, it was completely different even back then, because of the press that you had to deal with every single day. Not anything close to what it is now because it's just gotten so big. But it still was different, for us. We had been in the playoffs in the 60s with the Green Bay Packers for the right to go to Super Bowl I. And so we finally made it in 1970, and it was an unbelievable experience. And then to look how it's grown and how it's gotten, so much bigger, it just blows you away to see how it's such a huge event. Back then too, though, I could make more money if we won the Super Bowl, than I was making as a salary. So even though it's gone to a lot more money now, but it was a lot of money for us back then, to get in the Super Bowl and to win it.
And, Coach, when you look at your former team, the Cowboys now, they're going to be faced with a pretty interesting decision when Tony Romo is healthy enough and ready to play again. Dak Prescott has played extremely well, and together with Ezekiel Elliott, they are a pretty dynamic pair of rookies, and the Cowboys' offense looks really good. If you were the head coach in Dallas, what would you do when Romo was ready to play again?
Well, again, it's what you've told your football team, and I know that when I was coaching, you never could. You always told them that you couldn't lose your job, through an injury. If you come back from the injury, you'll have the ability to step in. Although I never had a situation, quite like that where, a quarterback has done as well as he has, and so I didn't have to make a decision as tough as what they're going to have to make. But I do think that they probably won't mess with, the chemistry of the football team. And I think either quarterback, will do a great job. They got a great offensive line, good running back, all the things that you're looking for. Prescott's done a great job, but he's also done a good job of, not making the mistakes that cost you a football game.
Bob, one more for Coach before we let him go? Sure, Coach. After having coached 23 years, I am sure there were at times where you were contacted by colleges. I mean, I think of college / pro coaches. Coach, I think of guys like Dennis Erickson and Nick Saban who just couldn't make the transition. You kind of knew where your niche was. What is it? Take a totally different type of personality, Coach, to coach at the different levels.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is different dealing with the younger people, doing the recruiting. Whereas in the league we're doing drafting and see players playing in college. I think it is different. I never had the experience of coaching in college. I had some opportunities to interview with it, but I really, felt like it was in my best interest to stay in pro football because I got that experience of being a player coach, knew what kind of hours and time that you were putting in. And, also I just felt much more comfortable because I never recruited. And I don't care where you're coaching, you better have some good players if you're going to win.
Coach, remind our listeners how they can still hear you and all of your football insights and stories over the radio and online.
Well, I just do a local show here in Atlanta, just staying close to the Atlanta Falcons. So, my football is basically talking about football here locally. 680 to fan.
Coach,
if you're in Atlanta,
there you go, 680 to fan. That's right.
There you
Coach,
go.
thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. It's always a thrill for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you. We hope you'll come back perhaps later in the season, share more of your thoughts and insights with us, because it's always a great segment when we get to spend with you.
It's always a pleasure for me, Bob. Chris, you take care and call me anytime.
Thank you, Coach. All the best to you and your family.
All right, appreciate it. Y'all have a great one.
Good night.
You too.
Good night.
That is former head coach Dan Reeves, and boy, Bob, it's just every time we get to say that we're going to spend, a segment talking to Coach, it's always a huge thrill because, obviously, more knowledge about football than just about anybody, and then the great run that he had with the Cowboys back in the late '60s and early '70s as a part of some great Cowboys teams, and getting the opportunity to to play in some huge championship games like he talked about with the Packers, but then in a couple of Super Bowls on top of that, and then right into coaching he went, and boy, always a thrill for me to get the opportunity to speak to Coach.
Every time we find out we're going to have him on, Chris, I think you and I agree. It's more of the excitement of talking to such a gentleman. Out of all the coaches and players we've had on here who are top shelf individuals, he's right there. I mean, he again is so cooperative, Chris. Had a lot of disappointment in his career, as we know, but always filled with dignity. You talk to him more than I have. He's just so cooperative and just a class act. It seems like a cliche, but Dan Reeves, maybe not be in the Hall of Fame, Chris, but he's in a Hall of Fame of people that have heads on their shoulders and class in their hearts. And we're honored to have him on anytime he can come on the show.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. Absolutely right, Bob. All right, we're going to get to Tony Collins and our 5-star picks of the week on the other side of this station identification.
This is Christine Lisi, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, where NFL stars go to tell their stories with Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network.
All right, now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins to go through our 5-star picks of the week. Hey, Tony, how are you tonight, my friend?
Good evening,
Tony. I am
Tony.
doing fantastic. How you doing, Chris and Bob?
Really well, thank you. So, Tony, another good week out of you, my friend. 4-1 last week in the picks, while Bob and I were 3-2. So extend the lead a little bit. You and I correctly picked the Saints over the Seahawks. We all had the Patriots over the Bills and the Broncos over the Chargers. We were all incorrect with our pick of the Cardinals over the Panthers, and then you and Bob eked out a win with the Falcons over the Packers, and I missed out on that one. So far, Tony, you got a 2-game lead now over me. You're 23-11-1. I am 21-13-1, and Bob 20-14-1. So Bob and I, we got some ground to suddenly make up on you.
Bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
So let's do that. We're going to bring it on here. Let's go through our picks this week. Our first game, Tony. We're going to start off with the Thursday night game that is going on over my shoulder right now. The 5-3 Falcons at the 3-4 Bucks. The Falcons are a 4-point road favorite. The over/under is 51. So Tony, who wins tonight?
This one almost is a toss-up. Tampa played really good last week against. I think they played the Raiders, and the Raiders pulled it out in the end. I'm going for the upset this week. I'm going to go for the upset. Tampa Bay playing at home. Atlanta, their offense is always good. I just don't think their defense is quite what it should be. So playing at home, Jameis Winston's going to have a great night tonight. So I'm going to go with Tampa tonight with the upset, 27-24, Tampa Bay.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
I think Tony makes a good point, Chris, as far as Atlanta's defense. Not that good. But they are a decent road team, Chris, and they're going to score the lights out wherever they play, and much, much better offensive team. I just think they'll win a shootout tonight. I'm going to pick Atlanta on the road, 30-24.
30-24. All right. And guys, I think really the Falcons, like you, Bob, I think they just have too much firepower for the Bucs in the end, who are 23rd against the pass this season, and the Bucs are allowing 27 points per game, which is 25th in the league, while the Falcons, They have the top scoring offense. They're averaging nearly 33 points a game, guys. And just like, Coach was talking about the things that they need to do. Hopefully, their defense, continues to mature and shows up a little bit tonight. Matt Ryan is at or near the top of, every passing category right now, including 19 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. So, I think the Falcons, I think it's going to be a shootout. You guys have a high score. I got a high score as well. I'm going to take Atlanta to win this one 34-30. And Tony, before we get to our second game, I got an instant message from our good friend Angelo Kane, who wanted me to pass along. He's enjoying listening to you giggle like a little schoolgirl, but he hopes you're enjoying this week and the fact that he has to post every day how much he loves the New England Patriots and Tony Collins for the next couple of days.
He should know not to bet against my Patriots, man. With Tom Brady
That's
playing.
what I told him when I saw that he lost this bet. I'm like, what are you doing, betting Tony against the Patriots and the Bills? He can't help himself. Sometimes he lacks a little judgment. What can I tell you?
Too funny.
All right, so our second game this week, Tony, is the 4-3 Steelers. My Steelers going into Baltimore against the 3-4 Ravens. The Ravens are a 2.5-point home favorite. The over/under is 43.5. Now, no definitive word yet if Roethlisberger is going to be able to play or not. I think it's probably 50-50 at this point. They're a little concerned perhaps about some swelling in that knee. So, Tony, can my Steelers get a big road win in the division even if Ben doesn't play?
Well, see, that's a tough one to pick. Now, if I don't know if Ben's playing or not, if Ben's playing, I'm going with Pittsburgh. Ben not playing, I got to go with the Ravens. So, I don't know, man. They're playing in Baltimore, right?
Right.
Oh man, Baltimore's got a good defense, but I just think even with Baltimore's decent defense, I think Pittsburgh can pull it out, man. I really do. I think Pittsburgh can pull it out with or without Ben. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh with their offense and their great receivers that they have. Got a great running back there. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh, 27-17.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
I agree with Tony, guys. I think Pittsburgh is just they're going to be fine, Chris. I think Baltimore they're reeling, and I think this just puts the nail in the coffin. They're going to lose their 5th game of the year. They're going to probably be done after this week. I think just Pittsburgh. I agree with Tony. You feel a little bit better with Ben, of course, but they'll have enough to get by here. Again, Baltimore, I just don't like Baltimore's offense too much at this juncture. They're going to lose their 5th in a row. It happens to be at home, and there's going to be a lot of chirping in Baltimore after this week. So, yeah, Pittsburgh wins 30-20.
Wow. All right, guys. Well, this stat snuck up on me, but the Steelers have lost 5 in a row to the Ravens, which is just awful. It's like the Red Sox losing 5 in a row to the Yankees, or North Carolina losing 5 in a row to Duke. The Ravens defense, like you point out, Tony, playing well. 4th overall, 4th against the run, so it's going to be interesting to see how Le'Veon Bell performs against them. If Ben doesn't play, they're going to be stacking the box to stop Le'Veon Bell. He had 129 yards last year in the only game he played against the Ravens, but that's been his only 100-yard game against them in his 3+ seasons. So, we've seen Steelers backups have success, backup quarterbacks have success against the Ravens. Charlie Batch beat them back in 2012, and to your point, Bob, the Ravens are struggling, where they always struggle, and that's at quarterback with Joe Flacco being the 29th rated passer in the league this year, just above Ryan Fitzpatrick, Blaine Gabbert, and Brock Osweiler, if that tells you what kind of year Flacco is having. 5 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and his yards per attempt is 30th in the league. He's averaging 6 yards an attempt. So he'll do his best to make a really bad Steelers defense look okay, but you know what, fellas? Without Ben, the Steelers really, have no chance, not only not to beat the Ravens, but anyone else for that matter, with a defense as bad as their defense is playing. So you know what, fellas? I'm going the opposite way. I can't pick with my heart. I got to pick with my head.
You can't do that, Chris.
I got it. Tony, look, we just talked about how Angelo Kane was dumb enough to bet you with the Bills and the Patriots because, he's an idiot and bets with, thinks with his heart and not his head. I can't do it, Tony. I got to tell you, the Ravens, I'm taking the Ravens. I think it's going to be a close game. That always is. I say they win this game by 3. Especially if Ben isn't there, I say they win 20-17.
Wow.
Our third game this week, Tony, we got the 4-3 Eagles going to the 4-3 Giants. The Giants are a 2.5-point home favorite. The over/under is 43. So, Tony, can rookie Carson Wentz lead the Eagles to a win on the road in New Jersey against the Giants?
I'm trying to figure out how is the New York Giants favored in this game. I just that bothers me right there. I think Philly's a good team, man. I watched them play against the Cowboys last week, and great game. Probably should have won the game if they would have made a couple plays at the end. I just think Philly's defense is going to be a little bit too much pressure on Manning. So I'm going to go with Philly. I think the rookie quarterback is going to do well. So I'm going with Philly. Low-scoring game, 17-13, Philly.
Wow. All right. Bob, what do you think?
It's a tough one. You got 2, 4, and 3 teams. The Giants are on a little upswing here. Philadelphia, they've lost a game, but they haven't won in that division yet. And the Giants, I'm reading the New York papers, and guys like Cruz and Beckham, they're interested in getting onto Philadelphia this week, and they want this game bad. And there's never been a question of the Giants having the weapons here. It's just a matter if they could hold down the fort defensively. Not playing too bad recently defensively. I think the Giants are going to pull this out, guys. I'm going to pick the Giants, Manning to have a pretty good day. And how about the Giants? 31-27.
All right. So, guys, the Giants, they got 2 in a row. They won 2 in a row now. Eli's having another nice season, 10th in the league in passing yards, but only 8 touchdowns with 6 interceptions. So I think if you're a Giants fan, you're hoping for a little better ratio than that. And what hurts Eli and really the rest of the offense is their running game or lack thereof. Dead last, guys, in the league in rushing yards, only averaging 70 yards per game on the ground, and their defense is allowing 20 points per game, which is pretty good for 10th in the league. But the offense is only scoring 19, so their defense is allowing 20, the offense is scoring 19. Do the math, right? Not a winning equation if you're the Giants. Now Carson Wentz on the other side, nice season as a rookie, 9 touchdowns, only 3 picks. The Eagles, are scoring nearly 26 points a game. Their defense is 4th overall in the league. They're only allowing 16.7 points per game. And the other thing they do well is they're a +6 in the giveaway-takeaway ratio, while the Giants are a -7. And the Eagles are 4th in sacks with 22, while the Giants are 31st in sacks with 9. So all that math adds up to me, fellas. The Eagles win this game. It'll probably be close, but I'm taking the Eagles 24-20. We've got our next guest, head coach Ray Goff, hanging on the line. We're going to get to coaching here in just a minute. Couple more games before we go, Tony. Our next game is the 6-2 Broncos going to the 6-2 Raiders, which is a pick'em game at this point, and the over/under is 43.5. So, Tony, can the Raiders continue to have a magical season just in time for them to pack up and move on to Las Vegas?
I tell you what, man, Oakland's playing some good football, man. I mean, they seem to find a way to win the game in the late part of every game. They just keep winning. But they're going to come up against a Denver team. But you know what? I like Oakland because they're going to be at home. If not, they were playing in Denver, it'd be a whole different story. I would have to go with Denver, but I'm just going to go with Oakland this week. I think. Good quarterback. They got some great receivers. Nice running game. They got a good pass rush. So I'm going to go with Oakland. That's probably going out on a limb, but I think Oakland can pull it out playing at home. We got some great fans out there in Oakland, and so let's go with Oakland, winning 27-23.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
That's one of the games of the week, guys. 2 6-2 teams hammer it out, and both playing very well. Oakland, you got the better defense in Denver, and you probably got a little bit better defense in Oakland. My goodness, and I think Tony hit it on the head. If they were playing in Denver, you'd probably go with them. But Oakland, with those weapons out there at home, maybe they win a game that goes very far, right down to the wire. I'm going to say within the last 2 minutes, Oakland pulls this one out. It's going to be like a 31-28 game. Oakland 31-28.
All right. Well, guys, the Raiders are off to their best start since 2001 when they lost the AFC division round in the playoffs against Tony's Patriots in the tuck rule game, which was one of the most egregious calls in the history of football, but it is what that was. But Derek Carr, right, is having a great season, 5th in passing yards and passer rating, 17 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Amari Cooper, 3rd in the league in receiving yards. Now, where they're challenged, and you guys alluded to this, is on their defense. They're 22nd in points allowed, giving up 25 a game, and they're 28th against the run and 27th against the pass, which reminds me, guys, of John McKay and his quote, "We didn't tackle well today, but we made up for it by not blocking well either." So their defense is really, their Achilles heel, right? So, like you guys are saying here, I think this game is going to be a shootout. They've needed to score 30-plus points to win, which they've done in 3 of their last 4 games. But you're going against, a Broncos defense that is playing really well. Their only glaring hole, which surprising it was to me to learn they're 24th against the run. They're allowing 117 yards a game, but they haven't allowed more than 23 points in a game this season. They've allowed, 20 or fewer in 6 of their 8 games. So, I just think, that it's going to be – I don't think the Raiders' offense will be able to do enough against the Broncos' defense, while the Broncos will be able to do a lot against the Raider defense. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game too, fellas, but I'm going with Denver. I'm going the opposite way again. I'm taking Denver 27-24. Our last game this week is the resurrected 4-4 Lions going to the suddenly slumping 5-2 Vikings. The Vikings are a 7-point home favorite. The over/under is 41. So, Tony, the Vikings have lost 2 in a row. They just parted ways with their offensive coordinator today in Norv Turner, which seems like a pretty big panic move for a team that was undefeated 2 weeks ago. Who do you like in this one?
This is a toss-up, man. You look at Minnesota at the beginning of the season, you just think that man, this is going to be a great team, great defense, good quarterback doing well, and now things are falling apart, man. And when you lose your offensive coordinator that's been there since training camp, another guy is going to come in and with another scheme, maybe they probably running the same scheme, but he's a different offensive coordinator. So I just think Minnesota is going to lose 3 in a row. I think it's maybe 3 in a row. I think they lost 2 in a row, right. So I think they're going to lose 3 in a row. So I'm going to go with Detroit, man. Detroit playing some good football right now, so I'm picking Detroit. Detroit winning 27-14.
27-14. All right, close to a Tony Collins blowout special. Bob, what do you think?
Says all the signs of being a very ugly game, guys. You have a team in Minnesota, very good defense. Detroit, not that good of a defense. Minnesota offense kind of in disarray, but they haven't lost at home yet. And I think if they're going to right the ship, they better do it quick. If they go to 5-3 now after everybody was talking about how good they were at the beginning. And then you're going to hear Bradford stories. You're going to hear a lot of things. So I think they quiet things down. I think Minnesota at home, they do okay this week. They win an ugly game. I'm going to say it's 20-14 Minnesota.
20-14 Minnesota. All right. Well, Minnesota's offense, 23rd in scoring. They're just under 20 points a game, and they're 31st in rushing offense. So where have you gone, Adrian Peterson? 28th in passing offense, averaging only 221 yards a game. And really, fellas, don't blame Sam Bradford for this. The guy is the 8th-rated passer in the league, 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He's completing 67% of his passes. So this isn't Sam Bradford's fault. And I'm not saying it's Norv Turner's fault either. They can't run the football. So when you can't run the football, you're really limiting your receivers, to being double covered and going to nickels and dimes, out there in the defense because they know you can't run the football. So it's really hard for the receivers to get open. And a defense that was number 1 in the league for much of the season just let Jay Cutler and the Bears offense run and pass all over them on Monday night. So, meanwhile for the Lions, Matthew Stafford having another good year there. He's 8th in passing yards, 4th in passer rating, 16 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Lions defense, to your point, Bob, sort of middle of the road against both the pass and the run, but I expect Matthew Stafford to do the same thing that Cutler did, and that was really pick on Vikings 38-year-old cornerback Terrence Newman, and had a lot of success. I'm sure Matthew Stafford's watched the films. He'll have a lot of success. So I like the Lions too, Tony. I'm with you. I'm taking the Lions 27-20. So Bob with the Vikings, Tony and I with the Lions. Tony, before we let you go, remind our listeners about all the great things you're doing to try to help kids get to college.
TonyCollinsFoundation.com, TonyCollinsProjects.com. Go on our website, make a donation. Every donation that we get, we help seniors going off to college with a $1,500 scholarship.
There you go. Great stuff, Tony. Always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks for coming back on the show this week. We'll see if you can maintain your 2-game lead over me and your 2-game lead over Bob next week. But we look forward to it, my friend.
You guys have a great one. God bless.
Take care,
All right,
Tony.
take care, Tony. That is former Patriots Pro Bowl running back Tony Collins and our 5-star picks of the week. And now, hanging on the line with us, now on the French Lick Resort guest line, and back with us making his 3rd appearance is Ray Goff. And let me remind you about Ray's background. Played quarterback at the University of Georgia from 1974 to 1976, and he led the Bulldogs to 19 wins over his last 2 seasons. He was named the SEC Player of the Year in 1976 when the Bulldogs won the SEC title, and he finished 7th in the Heisman voting. Started out his coaching career as an assistant at the University of South Carolina. He came back to Georgia in 1981 and worked his way up through the coaching ranks, starting out as a recruiting coordinator, then tight ends coach, and then a running backs coach. When Vince Dooley retired in 1988, he took over as the head coach. And as the head coach of the University of Georgia from 1989 to 1995, he finished with a 46-34-1 record. He's a member of the University of Georgia Hall of Fame, the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame, and the Florida Georgia Hall of Fame, and we're excited that he is back again with us tonight on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Coach, Chris and Bob here. Thanks for coming back on the show.
I appreciate it, Chris. Hey, Bob, and I enjoy it.
So, Coach, want to get your thoughts on your alma mater. The Bulldogs are off to a 4-4 start, probably not what most Georgia fans were hoping for, especially with Kirby Smart coming back to take over the program as head coach. But, when I was sort of looking at the records, his situation has some similarities to the one that you faced when you took over as head coach. The Bulldogs were 9-3 the last season under Coach Dooley. They were 10-3 last season under Mark Richt. Your first season, you guys finished 6-6. They're 4-4 so far this season. So, have you had an opportunity to talk to Coach Smart and maybe give him some advice or share some of the experiences that you went through when you took over as head coach?
Well, Kirby played for me. I recruited him, and I know his family very well. And it's a tough transition for him to come from Alabama to Georgia, and the players don't know what to expect of him, and he doesn't know what the players where they're at, and the depth that he had, and it takes you a year or two to kind of wean out some of the guys that don't want to play for you or really are not the type people you want to be around, and vice versa. They might feel the same way about Kirby, but it takes you a year or two, and I think he'll do fine. I really do. He's a great guy. He's a great football coach, and I think he proved that at the University of Alabama. And I'm tickled he's here, and I think he'll do a great job. Obviously, people are frustrated, and because Mark had done such a great job, and you're just going in a different direction, and I think he'll do a good job, and I'm proud of him.
When you look at the program right now, Coach, is there anything in particular that is sticking out to you with why they're struggling so far this season? Is it any one thing that is causing them to struggle, or do you think it's just a new system, new coach, getting used to him, that sort of thing?
I think, of course, it's all speculation. I mean, I go to the home games. I have seen Kirby one time since he's been here, and I don't call him. I don't bother him. I've always told him, if you need me, I'm here. If I can help you, you call me. I'm not going to bug you. So, but from watching them play, obviously, I think their offensive line is struggling a little bit. And, they can't protect the quarterback, and they can't run the football as well as they would like to and as well as we have in the past. And I think that's the biggest thing there. And Kirby, I think, would like bigger receivers and with height advantage and speed. And and we don't have a lot of big receivers or big defensive backs, and it's just he's got to go out and recruit the guys that fit in what he wants to do. And he's a great recruiter. He's very motivated. He's got a motor that goes 100 miles an hour all the time, and you got to give him time to get the type players that he wants in his system. And and like I say, it'll take a couple of years. And of course, the people at Georgia, they're not very patient. And of course, I don't know of a college football town that they are very patient. To be honest with you, it's a tough profession now.
And Coach, to your point, when you had to deal with this when you took over for Coach Dooley, but each coach, I'm imagining, has a system and a style of play that he likes to have with his team, and a character for that team that he is looking for, and a culture within that team. You had to take over for Coach Dooley. He's now taken over for Mark Richt. Is that hard to do, because you're coming in and these aren't the guys you recruited. These are the guys that the guy before you recruited. So now you're having potentially to change, an entire culture, an entire group of men that may not be, used to playing in your system, used to playing your style, or their talents don't fit your style. How do you go about making that transition? And to your point, keeping the fan base, on board with you while you go through a transition that may take a few years to, come to fruition.
Well, I tell people a lot, when you get any job, 70% or 80% of the people love you, because everybody wants something new, something fresh. And so you've got 70-80% of the people that are for you, and then as the years go on, that 70 and 80 gets down to the 60s, and then it gets to the 55s, and then it gets to in the 40s, and then you get fired. Yeah, that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, it's just, people want what they don't have, and they're never they're never satisfied with what they've got. And and I think that was true with Mark. I mean, there were a lot of people that were frustrated, and I don't know why not, because Mark did a good job at Georgia. I thought Mark was an outstanding person and a great football coach, and I'm tickled to death that Kirby's our coach now, and I'm proud of him, and I think he'll do a great job. And but people are just, they want everything all at one time. We have no patience in our world today. And, we've got phones that we sleep with at night, and you can be in a meeting and get a phone call, whereas 15, 20 years ago, people were a little more patient because your phones were at your house and your office. You didn't have phones in your pocket and phones in your car. And we've just become, immediate success. Everything has got to be done right now. And we have no patience. And here at Georgia, we've had some success. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about it. We've had a lot of success here, but, we hadn't won 20 national championships or 15 or ever how many Alabama's won. And, we've won 2, I think, in the history of our football program. And we've been playing college football here for about 120 years now, I think it is. I think it's about 122 years we've been playing football. And I think we've won 2 national championships. Doesn't mean we don't want to win national championships, but I mean, we've had a great program here, a good program here, but we have not won championships like a lot of the other people, and I think that's what the frustration is here at the university.
Bob, questions for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, it's always a pleasure, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about Vince Dooley. You had the incredible distinction of playing under the guy, coaching under the guy, and then actually taking over for the guy. And especially when you first started playing under him, Coach, as far as the qualities and teachings that he kind of imparted on you, what do you remember most that you were able to take with yourself and have some success as a head coach due to Dooley?
The one thing, and of course when I got the job, he was my boss too. So even then, he was our athletic director. But the one thing that I always remember about Coach Dooley when I was a player, it didn't matter if we were playing the Little Sisters of the Poor. I mean, we were the underdog. He always told us that, how great this football team is, and he never let us we were never complacent. We never thought that when we went into a game that we were going to win. This other team was so much better than us, and we always had to strive to be better than them. And he just beat. It didn't matter who you played. He built them up like it was the Green Bay Packers playing the University of Georgia. And I think that was something that kind of resonated with me, and I was never complacent. Didn't have as nearly as much success as Coach Dooley did, and a lot of other coaches that have been here, I didn't have as much success, but I never was complacent. I always, respected my opponent, and and knew that we were going to be in for a fight, and that's what he always stressed to us as players, that no matter who we played, you better bring your A game every day.
You mentioned recruiting, Coach, and I think it's well known that you had a very good reputation as a very good recruiter, especially while you were assisting him. And there's people out there, Coach, that'll say recruiting. If you have a budget and if you have access to the good guys and you could sit in living rooms, you're going to be a good recruiter. But there's more to it than that. What do you think makes a better recruiter than another?
Well, I don't know that I was any better than anybody else. I just worked at it, and and I spent time on the phone, and the first time I ever talked to a recruit, I always asked him a lot of personal questions about his family, and invariably I'd always get around to one point. If you've got a major decision in your life, who are you going to go to talk about it? And when people first meet you, they'll answer the questions that you ask them, and the longer you recruited the kids, the more close to the vest they played things. And but they would always tell me, usually when I first couple of times I was around them, who that person was that was going to help them if it was a major decision in their life. And when they told me, I always recruited that person just like I recruited the player as well. Because if they had a decision to make, that's who they're going to. And just little things. It's, recruiting today is so much different than it was when I was an assistant coach. I mean, they're offering scholarships to kids in the 8th and 9th grade nowadays. And I can remember we started offering kids in the summertime before their senior year. And, of course, Coach Dooley was just panicked. We would mail out letters and offer them a scholarship, but we told them, in the letter you had to be a qualifier, you had to have certain things, but he was just scared to death that we were going to get a bunch of players that, it didn't play well their senior year. But now they're offering scholarships in the 8th and 9th grade, and it just amazes me that, the way recruiting has changed. I mean, kids will commit to somebody and say, I'm 100% committed, and the next day he says, well, I'm really only 88. And, what the heck is like being 88% pregnant? Are you really 88% or are you 100% pregnant? I mean, you either are or you aren't. And but it's just a game. And it's a big business, the recruiting aspect for the people that sit on the outsides and the recruiting experts. I mean, they rank these kids as 5-star athletes, and I don't know if y'all do that or not, but I tell you, I tell people all the time, if these people that are ranking these high school athletes were so smart, they'd be in the NFL. They'd be drafting players for the Pittsburgh Steelers and those people. I mean, a lot of those people have no clue who's a 5-star prospect or 3-star or 2-star, and I don't even know what the hell a 5-star is. But, I've seen a lot of guys that were rated 5-star that couldn't play dead in a country western. And, so, it's just, it's not, I'm not big on all that stuff, to be honest with you.
Coach, one more before we let you go. And, we talk about recruiting and all of those sorts of things. And, boy, Georgia has consistently had a great stable of running backs. And in 1992, you had a young kid named Terrell Davis who started out playing at Long Beach State for legendary NFL head coach George Allen. But Coach Allen unfortunately had passed away during Terrell's redshirt freshman year, and then Long Beach State did away with their football program due to some budgetary issues after his second year there, and so he comes to Georgia. How are you able to convince a kid, by the way, from San Diego, California, to come across country and play football for you?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, we had a reputation of having great running backs, and when he came here, we also had a great running back in a young man by the name of Garrison Hurst. And Garrison wound up, I think, number 2 or 3 in the Heisman Trophy voting in 1992, and he left and was the third player drafted that year. And Terrell played behind Garrison, and when Garrison left, Terrell came in, and Terrell and I, we had a long talk about a year ago in San Diego. I was out for a convention with a franchise that I'm involved with, Zaxby's. It's a chicken finger franchise in the state of Georgia in the southeastern part. There's about 700-800 stores, and we had our convention in San Diego. And Terrell, I'm not going to say we had a bad relationship when he was here, but I think he felt like that we had not played him as much as he should have played, and we might have. I mean, there's no doubt that he was a great player in pro football, but I told him, I said, Terrell, you need to be thankful that we didn't play you so much because you might have gotten hurt and then you never would have played pro football. So you need to be thankful that we were stupid and didn't play you as much as we should have. And but Terrell and I, we kind of talked for a long time, had a great time, and he was really a really good football player for us at Georgia. He had some injuries and some things that kept him from being a great player here at Georgia, but obviously he was a great player in the NFL, and we're tickled that he played for us. And we had a guy by the name of Bob Pittard when they shut down their program out in San Diego State. He was our recruiting coordinator at the time, and he got some film on about 5 players, and we watched Terrell play, and we just felt like we thought he was really a great player. We were fortunate enough to sign him, and very fortunate that we had him for I think he was here 3 years, and he didn't have. Like I say, there were other backs that he was around. He had Robert Edwards that played for the New England Patriots as well back in the backfield. We had Garrison Hurst, and we had Terrell. So we had 3 guys that played. 2 of them were first-round picks, and Robert Edwards and Garrison, and then Terrell as well was I don't know what round he went in, but all of them had really good careers in the NFL. And Terrell's was a great career, and I was really disappointed that he was not elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I thought he should have been picked, personally.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. We always enjoy when we get a moment to spend some time with you. We hope you'll come back later on in the season, share more of your stories and your insights with us, because you're fantastic.
Well, I'm tricking you, see. That's what I'm doing. But I appreciate it, Chris, and thank you all very much for inviting me. I drove back into my office. I've been working out, and I had to come back to the office, and because I live in the country, and I can't get cell service where I live, so I have to come to the office to talk to you, but I enjoy it. And thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for doing that, Coach. All the best
sir.
to you and your family. We look forward to the opportunity to catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Chris. God bless. Bye-bye.
Take care now. That is former University of Georgia head coach Ray Goff. Love that line, Bob. Couldn't play dead in a country western. I wrote that down. That's one I'm going to be stealing from Coach. That's a fantastic line.
He is, and he has some great experiences, and work with some incredible people, and he's got that gunslinger type mentality, Chris, and love having him on, and very good insight into the college game.
All right, coming up in the rest of hour number 2 here on Thursday Night Tailgate, sponsored by Kyvan Foods, Coastal Orthopedics, the Louisville Slugger Museum and Factory, and the French Lick Resort. We're going to be joined by Leigh Steinberg and Lifford Hobley. Leigh Steinberg going to join us on the other side of this station identification.
Hi, this is former Rams QB Jim Everett, and you're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate, a.k.a. TNT, and it's explosive in here with my buddies, the hosts, Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari, and we're listening to all this on the Armed Forces Radio Network. So take it away, Ben.
And now back with us, making his 8th appearance with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line, is super agent, author, teacher, and TNT Hall of Famer Leigh Steinberg. And there isn't a bigger name and a more influential person or a better person in the world of sports than Leigh Steinberg is. We were honored to have him as a member of our 2015 Hall of Fame class here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're excited he's back with us again tonight here on TNT. Good evening, Leigh. Chris and Bob here. How have you been, my friend?
I've been great. I'm down in Miami. Going to speak at the University of Miami Law School tomorrow, and then go to the Miami Pitt game on Saturday. But yesterday we announced a new coalition to utilize athletes to at the pro and collegiate level to inspire younger athletes at high school and middle school to try and change the culture of those high schools so the bullying that's so prevalent that affects 40 to 50% of the kids, and it's verbal, it's physical, it's on the internet, but the athletes sit on top of the food chain in each of those situations. And if instead of being the bulliers, they're the purveyors of tolerance, we can change those cultures around fast. So it's called the Hear Us Project. And I tried to assemble a group of experts, and I think we're going to try to tackle the sort of tough environment that exists at a lot of schools.
That's great stuff, Leigh. And I tell you, the idea of putting an end to bullying is something near and dear to our hearts. We've had Nick Lowry on the show several times, talking about efforts that he's been involved with to try to stop bullying. To your point, now it's a lot of cyberbullying, for kids that that they have to deal with and go through stuff that we didn't have to deal with as kids. Now it's even more public than it is just in the schools, because now it's out on the internet as well. So for people that are interested, Leigh, and want more information and figure out how they can get involved and help you with this cause, how can they find out more information about it?
By going to Project Hear Us, Hearing and Us .org, and Michael Aries is the executive director, and I'm always happy to answer questions at Leigh Steinberg on Twitter or through our website. But the whole point is this: a whole generation of kids, half of them grow up with and it crushes their self-esteem, and they take that around with them for the rest of their life. It's nothing you can see, but it's a matter of not feeling part of or as good as, and it really has stultifying effects. The most dramatic are suicide or drug abuse, but it really impacts a whole lot of people over things they have no control over, how they look or something they were born with or their race or gender or, probably a little more control of weight, but still it's really savage at middle schools and high schools, and we need to turn that tide.
Absolutely we do, and that's great work. Again, it's projecthearus.org to get involved, and thank you very much for doing that, Leigh. Let's get us up to speed. What are the other things you guys have going on right now at Steinberg Sports?
Which we've just taken a little bit of cessation on, but the whole goal is to take the flood and torrent of young people's interest in being involved either as sports professionals or more specifically sports agents, and to try and do something that doesn't really happen on the college campus. They offer courses in sports law and sports management, but they teach you the principles. So when I got out of law school, I was really prepared to do virtually nothing except learn whatever I was going to have to do for the job. I knew the principles of law. I didn't know how to be a lawyer. So this is real granular stuff. We're talking about how to recruit, how to negotiate, how to put together your best foot forward, how to distinguish yourself from the crowd. And so it offers young people specific training in how to brand, how to market, how to do damage control. And So my goal is to try to create a new generation of sports professionals that have ethics and values and understand that sports can stand for something really positive.
Lee, let's get on the field a little bit. Paxton Lynch, your client, rookie quarterback down in Denver. Curious to get your thoughts. What does the emergence, if you will, of Trevor Siemian mean for Paxton's long-term value to Denver?
I think Paxton's on a very different track. We've talked before on your show about how dramatic the transference from the collegiate game to the pro game is, how more complex the offenses are, how narrow the degree of separation with receivers is, how fast-paced the game is. So it's really difficult for a rookie quarterback to see the field as clearly as he will in later days. And so, Paxton was progressing quite nicely. He got into half of a game and played really well. He had a tougher game when he started, but there were a lot of factors there. But no rookie quarterback is going to look quite that great. Now you'll say, wait a minute, how about Dak Prescott? How about Carson Wentz? Well, we're seeing them go around the league for the first time, very akin to a baseball pitcher. Nobody knows how to hit them. I think both players are great, but what we care much more about is a 10 to 15 career, where and when he happens to get in. Remember, that team is a Super Bowl potential team, so they can't really take time training a rookie. And eventually, as he progresses, he has a set of skills that might be a little different than Trevor Siemian. He's got the ability to throw deep. He can scramble out of the pocket. So let's see how it works out.
Bob, questions for Lee?
Sure, Lee, it's great to speak with you again. And you had mentioned you're going to be speaking tomorrow in Miami, and it boggles my mind how many speeches you do throughout the year, how you try to make an impact on the world through sports. And we know, Lee, there's different topics of these speeches. As you said, bullying, it could be catered toward your audience. But after each speech you give, Lee, is there a certain theme that you say, my goodness, this is coming up to every speech I do? Is there one common theme that you usually include in all your speeches?
Well, it's funny you say that, because the same 6 or 7 questions will always come up, which are, how did you get started? What's your philosophy? Are athletes overpaid? Are sports in trouble? What about the concussion situation? It used to be, when will the Rams return to Los Angeles? And what's happening with that football? And commonality is that. But I try to stress that athletes can go back and retrace their roots to the high school, collegiate, and professional communities they come from, and in doing that, be role models that will trigger imitative behavior. So it's trying to explain that, and also the economics of what's happening. So the newest question coming up is the sagging of the ratings of NFL, and are they oversaturated? So new issues come up all the time, but the core concepts are the same. It's explaining what agency is, how the regulations are much stiffer now, with players' associations demanding that agents be certified, state laws, compliance on college campuses. In fact, in football, there's 1,000 certified agents, and the level of competition. What I'm trying to stress is this is not a career for someone that is faint of heart, that the work ethic necessary is really at the highest level because the competition is so high. And one of the things I talk about with the young people is, if you were doing a resume, trying to get an internship or get a job, do something distinctive. I mean, we get thousands of pieces of paper typewritten, but one time we got a copy of Sports Illustrated in the mail, and it looked exactly like SI. It had their font, their type style. It had the pictures that looked identical. Only this was all about how a young man is standing next to me on the cover, and we're announcing we hired him. And every article is cleverly written to talk about how he enhanced our firm. So you can see just in that application that here's someone with creativity, he's clever, he does his research, he's skilled with visual skills. So athletes are going to be looking for someone who stands out. We're looking for someone to hire that does something more clever than just a flat piece of paper. Could be a video, could be something, but get yourself into the heart and mind of the prospective employer and see the world the way he or she sees it, and then figure out how to advance. Because being part of the crowd, modular, fungible, you will, or replaceable, you will be replaced. So it's a lot of it is how to succeed in the world of sports.
And Leigh, I wanted to ask you this for a while now. I'm asked it myself, people that knew how much I loved the sport of boxing back in the 80s while I was in college and shortly thereafter. And, of course, the recent death of a guy like Aaron Pryor brought this all up to me. It seems to me that the sport is kind of on the downswing. Leigh, I don't know if it's the ultimate fighting. I don't know if it was a Don King running it into the ground. I really couldn't put my finger on it, but, it's just not there for me anymore as far as the interest. You've represented boxers. Tell me the current aspects of what's happening in the boxing world. Is this a dying sport?
Well, what I saw when I represented Oscar De La Hoya and Lennox Lewis and a little bit of Evander Holyfield, they had distinctive personalities that the public knew and were able to appreciate. And what happened over a period of time is that any young, promising fighter who appeared to have great potential got brought up to fight the current champion and wasn't ready, and then quickly got knocked out. So you haven't had the development of the type of appealing young boxers that we had before. You don't have a heavyweight division with the drama of Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. You don't have a middleweight that has the equivalent of, Sugar Ray Leonard or Oscar De La Hoya. And so there's not a system developing them in a measured way. So in the same way we just talked about Paxton Lynch, he's mostly sitting on the bench this year, but he's learning. When he does come in, he's going to be experienced. Here, it would be like putting Paxton Lynch in, against an offense that's going to sack him 10 times, against a defense that will sack him. So they haven't developed, very well a system for marketing boxers who have longevity, because it's so many back now, and people from before. You don't have young, hot people in their 20s. Boxing was built when they had like the Saturday night fights or the Monday night fights, so you could get it on commercial TV. You could see the best fighters on television. You didn't have to go pay $60, $80 to see them. Part of why football has been so successful is if you have $90 to get a little black and white TV, you can watch a lot of football. Now, HBO does boxing, Showtime does boxing, there are other parts that do it, but to see the fight the first time, they've made a lot of money for a few fighters, but they haven't helped build the audience, because you have to be really motivated to go ahead and purchase that pay-per-view.
Leigh, just a couple more before we let you go, and you've been involved in so many legendary contracts, but probably none more so than the one Steve Young signed with the LA Express of the USFL. The length and the amount of that contract, from what I've read, it sort of varies depending on where I read the story, Wikipedia said it was 10 years and $40 million. Others have said it was $42 million over 43 years. Yet a third site said it was, $1 million buyout in there. So it wasn't any of those things. Plus, I read that the actual signing of that contract when it happened with LA Express owner William Oldenburg was a pretty crazy story. Do you mind, correcting the record or setting the record straight for what the contract was and what it was like when you sat down with him to try to sign that deal?
It's interesting. Had the USFL continued playing in the spring, and a certain presidential candidate was part of trying to move it to the fall, they would have made it because TV was just bursting loose. So what they were doing is trying to sign big stars. So they had Herschel Walker in that league, Michael Gier. They signed Reggie White, Jim Kelly. I mean, they basically picked the 84 draft claim. So it was going to be a monster contract because Steve was going to be the first pick in the first round by Cincinnati, and Cincinnati told us that. So to get a good-looking young Mormon kid in Los Angeles, it had so many aspects that would help sell the league. So I looked at John Elway's contract, and it looked like it was about $1 million a year. So I was sort of like, well, how can we sort of double that? And so we sort of did that over 4 years. And then the question was, but Steve kept saying no. So they kept enhancing their offer. And then they added, so it was fundamentally about $5 or $6 million for 4 years. And then the tax rates were so high, we kept trying to add money to it. And the only way we could do it was through an annuity that would pay him out over a long period of time. What happened was that, so it would have been, he would have actually been paid $43 million on a 4-year contract. Well, it was a 42, but anyway, a lot of years ago. So what happened was that Bill Oldenburg went bankrupt, and so there was no one to ensure that he would pay. The guarantees would have been gone with him. So what happened is the league stepped in and wrote him a check for the amount of money that would have that annuity placed. So instead of ever being placed, he was simply handed what's called the present value of that. Now, Steve was someone who loved to play football, but he wasn't necessarily looking for focus on his contract. He had good values. He didn't buy a whole lot of things. And so the thought of being held up as the symbol of excess materialism was abhorrent to him. And when it started leaking out how big the contract was, he didn't want to come out to the press conference. And so we're sitting there, and it was one of the largest press conferences at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel I've ever seen. And we're sitting there, and you've got like 50 TV cameras and everything waiting, and I'm down there telling him it's okay. And so eventually he came out. Well, it ran as the lead item on the Dan Rather News, and it ran on front page headlines all across the country. We got newspapers from West Germany and Japan.
Oh my!
All you could read is 43 million. So hard to remember because the dollars are so prodigious today. But think of like somebody signing for $500 million today. It just blew people's minds. So ultimately, and that wasn't what Steve wanted. He wanted to be a role model like the other players, and he didn't want to be held up as a symbol of excess athletic salaries run amok.
And you recently tweeted out that the most important class to take to help someone who is interested in a career in sports is psychology, because it's important to understand what motivates others and seeing the world as they see it. And you mentioned this, a little bit ago. So, how are you able to figure out what motivates your clients? Because I can't imagine it's just as simple as, as asking them what motivates them.
The key I think, to being successful is the art of listening. It's drawing out another human being so that you get below the surface responses that they would give you and discover their deepest anxieties and fears and their greatest hopes and dreams. So it's creating enough trust and confidence that another person will be open. It probably won't come as a great surprise to some of your female listeners that most men don't share their deepest feelings quite as easily as most women do. And so it requires some time and effort. But what I'll do with an athlete is to say, look, if I give you this set of priorities, can you rank them? And so it'll be short-term economic gain, money that will come quickly to you, long-term economic security, the ability to be financially set over life. How important is family, either a nuclear family or your wife, kids? How important is geographical location, living in a certain area, the weather, the lifestyle, proximity to your parents? How critical are spiritual values to you? How critical is profile, the ability to be known, or endorsements? And a whole set of issues like that. And then the football, baseball, or basketball considerations, being on a winning team, the quality of coaching, being a starter, having playing in a certain system, the facilities they have. So those are all going to fit differently into different people's sense. So my job is to get inside an athlete below what he would do with surface responses and really get in touch on a deep level with his or hers hopes and dreams, so I can really understand how to fulfill them. Because my job is to fulfill an athlete as relates to their individual personality and character. It's not to do it generically.
So, Leigh, before we let you go, what's next for you? You talked about what you've got coming up this weekend. What's the long-term things? I'm working on a book proposal for another book that will the agent is still selling, but even almost 2 years later. But it'll be a new book that's the 12 truths I learned from professional athletes. So it will take real experiences, qualities I saw them exhibit, and some from my own life, and lay them out in a way that will help other people. So it's courage and loyalty and perseverance and a whole series of qualities that I've seen that would help everyone with their own life. Wow. Look forward to that. When are you looking for that book to be released?
Oh, probably not till next football season. We're just working on the proposal. We'll probably we've done a little bit of the book, but that probably is going to be something that that I do early in the new year, because for someone that does what I do, the November, December, and January, especially in the sport of football, major times of activity. And then we're hoping to do a baseball player in the June draft and a basketball player. So have a good draft class in football, and then start to expand to other sports.
We remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing, whether it's online or it's over social media.
So I tweet at Leigh Steinberg. We have a web page, Steinberg Sports, and I'm on all the usual suspects from Instagram to Facebook to LinkedIn, and all under my name.
Leigh, it's always a great time for Bob and I to get to spend some time with you. You know, you're absolutely one of our all-time favorite guests and a true Thursday Night Tailgate Hall of Famer for all the great stuff that you have brought to this show. Thank you so much for your support. That means so much to us, and we are already looking forward to the opportunity to hopefully catch up with you again real soon.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. I think you do a terrific show with a lot of great guests, and people that care about sports will be rewarded if they listen to you.
Thank you very much for that. Leigh, all the best to you and your family, my friend. We look forward to catching up with you again, like I say, real soon.
Thanks. Good night.
Take care, Leigh.
Good night, Leigh.
Good night.
The super agent Leigh Steinberg, and boy, Bob, the 12 truths I've learned from athletes. Look forward to that book, and like I was saying a moment ago, interesting to know what might have been for Steve Young, and then going all the way back to the beginning of the conversation with Leigh, the work that they're doing for bullying, which is a topic that's near and dear to our hearts. ProjectHearUs.org is the name of that site. So some really great stuff with Leigh. Unfortunately, had a little bit of cell difficulty with him, so some of the audio not as great, but certainly the message that he got in there were lots of great messages, a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, Chris, and it's great talking to him, a guy that is involved in the careers of so many guys at such young ages. He's got a lot of inside information and incredible insight into every sport that they're involved with, and he again, very inspirational too. We'd love to be hearing that speech tomorrow because he keeps it on the positive side. He's had his ups and downs himself, as we know. So that's why he's one of our Hall of Famers, Chris, and it's always an honor to speak with him.
Absolutely right. All right, before we move on with the show, I want to give a shout-out to our good friend Renee Shull over at Career Engagement Institute. And, folks, you hear us bragging about Renee and the great things that she does and the great job that she does every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. And, folks, if you're upside down in your career, and what do we mean by that, right? You want to move on, right? You're ready to move on. Go to careerengagement.institute to see how Renee can help you. You've heard some of our guests like TNT Hall of Famer Toy Cook singing Renee's praises, last time he was with us. And folks, if you work with Renee for 2 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why Toy did that and why we do that every single week here on Thursday Night Tailgate. We all want to work with someone that we can trust and who actually has our best interest at heart, and you know how rare it is to find someone like that. Well, no one fits that bill any better than Renee Shull does. She's a wonderfully talented lady, the kind of person you want to work with and have working for you. Renee has done some great things for some of our guests who have been in transition from being pro athletes and now getting into the job market. Folks, I'm telling you, she's just the very best. There isn't a better way for us to describe Renee than that. If you're an athlete or anybody in the job market, do yourself a favor and reach out to Renee. You're going to be so very glad that you did. Go to careerengagement.institute online and give her a follow on Twitter @IntegratedPlay. All right, when Bob and I come back, we'll be turning on the Thursday Night Tailgate spotlight on the positive, and then we'll wrap up the show, and we're going to do that on the other side of these words from our friends over at Coastal Orthopedics, Kyvan Foods, and the French Lick Resort.
Are you suffering from ongoing pain from athletic injuries in your knees, shoulders, or hips? Tired of living your life with an old injury that just won't go away? If you answered yes to either of these questions, we can help. Dr. Peter Candelora and his experienced staff of medical professionals will get you back on the road to recovery. Their state-of-the-art facility and new medical technology will ensure you'll be enjoying life again in no time. Since 1991, Dr. Candelora has been specializing in joint replacement, athletic injuries, and general orthopedics. Visit us on the web at athleteinjuries.com or call our office at 888-825-1150. That is 888-825-1150. We're proud sponsors of the Gridiron Greats Assistance Fund.
This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcon tight end, and I'm the owner of Kyvan Foods. And if you enjoy delicious food, you're going to love my Kyvan products, which consist of our honey apple salsa, sweet barbecue sauce, and an array of seasonings. For store locations, online orders, and recipes, check out our website at www.kyvan82.com. That's KYVAN 82.com. One taste, and you'll appreciate the goodness.
This is the time to play legendary golf at French Lick Resort. Book one of our money-saving packages like the Hall of Fame package and play our Pete Dye and Donald Ross courses. Stay in historic luxury at our French Lick or West Baden Springs hotels. Relax in our spas. Dine in our restaurants. Have some gaming fun in the casino. Or just rock on our rambling verandas like they did 100 years ago. Go online to FrenchLick.com and book your legendary golf getaway now at French Lick Resort.
Hey, welcome back. This is Todd Washington, two-time Super Bowl champ, offensive line coach for the Baltimore Ravens, and you are listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with my boys Chris-Mascaro and Bob-Lazzari on the Armed Forces Radio Network. Go get them, guys.
Hey, we're back here on Thursday Night Tailgate, and we're turning on our spotlight on the positive. Bob, who do you have for us this week?
Chris, this is such a great time of the show, and there's just so many guys to pick from. And how I usually approach this is trying to get guys that we haven't heard too much about that are in the trenches. And there's, of course, some of the more popular guys in the league that we're more familiar with who are doing just as good things. And so right away, what comes to mind is when we think about good guys, you can't help but think of Russell Wilson of Seattle. I think we've mentioned him in the past, what he's done, Chris, but to get into it a little more tonight, he runs something called the Why Not You Foundation, and how that got its name is as a child, his father wanted him to make a difference in the world, basically, whether it was in sports or not, and he basically would ask him once in a while, why not you? You should be the one, and he kind of took that with him throughout his career, and it got him all the way to the NFL, of course, and this whole foundation, Chris, is it's aimed at the youth of today, and again, it's how we can develop them into being good leaders. And God knows, especially this coming week, we need good leaders in this country, right, Chris? But we won't get into politics on this show. But he does an awful lot he does a lot with children's hospitals in the Seattle area, Chris. He's a big advocate for cancer, especially in children, which is there's not too many sadder things in life than that. And again, big into the domestic violence thing, which we've heard on the baseball diamond, news about that lately. So he does an awful lot of good things like that. And just recently, for example, Chris, just a few weeks back, he got together with NASCAR driver Casey Kane, who happens to be from the Washington area, and they were able to donate more than $1 million to the Seattle Children's Hospital, from various things that they did, and just basically putting together their resources. So that's kind of what they do. And again, go to Why Not You FDN Foundation. That is whynotufdn.org. And there's actually a good video of Russell telling you some of the things he's into. And it's just a terrific website. There's a blog, Chris. And again, kudos to Russell Wilson, who gets it done both on the field and off.
Absolutely. Now, that is great stuff, Bob. And tonight, Bob, I want to put the spotlight on Carolina Panthers tight end Greg Olsen for what he's doing to help raise awareness in a couple of different areas, particularly breast cancer, coming off just, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But, last week Greg was featured in a TV ad that began with, most women don't have time for breast cancer screenings. And then you see Greg arrive to babysit, some kids for a woman named Lena while she goes off and gets screened. And then the ad ends with the line, let's help the women in our lives find the time to get screened. So Greg, great stuff with that, and his dedication, to breast cancer awareness. His foundation is called Receptions for Research, right? And it is, Greg's mother is a breast cancer survivor, so doing great things, in honor of his mom. But he also has another program within his foundation, and it's called Hardest Heart, and heart as in your heart. Hardest Yard is the name of the sub part of his foundation. And that works closely with the Levine Children's Hospital at Carolinas Medical Center, which provides families with babies that are affected by congenital heart disease with a multitude of services, one of which is, in-home private nursing care, plus physical therapy and speech therapy, amongst other things. And Greg's son, TJ, was unfortunately born with a heart defect, so he knows all too well about the struggles that newborn babies go through with heart defects. And they've raised over $650,000 for Hardest Yard, and they've helped 24 families, completely take care of nursing care through the first 6 months of the baby's life. And more than the money, Bob. Greg stays in constant contact with the families that are affected by this. He participates, in a lighthearted thing called Tutus for Tuesday, where the nurses at the hospital all wear tutus, and it's designed really to boost the morale of these little kids. And they dared him to do it. He did it, and by the way, he continues to do it. So he looks at the Hardest Yard program that he has he put together as sort of a way of paying it forward, if you will, for what the people at Levine Children's Hospital did for his son. So he considers it really an honor, not an obligation, to try to help families that find out unfortunately that their newborn babies are affected by this heart defect. So he's doing a lot of great things for those families. He's doing a lot of great things for people that are dealing with breast cancer and the survivors of breast cancer. So Bob, big kudos to Greg Olson for the positive he's impacting, for the positive impact he's having on the lives of women with breast cancer, kids with heart defects, and then obviously the families that are dealing with both things, because it's not just the babies or the women that are dealing with breast cancer, because it impacts the entire family, and he's staying involved on both sides with the families dealing with both issues. So kudos to Greg Olson, Carolina Panthers tight end. Kudos to Russell Wilson, Seattle's quarterback, for the great things that they're doing to have an impact on the lives of people in and around their communities, Bob.
You make a great point, Chris. What stood out to me about Olson is how you said that these guys, it's not just they stand behind checkbooks and then do it. Chris, these guys are wealthy enough where they can basically get an assistant in their organization to say, just send a check, whatever, just send a check, whatever. But when these guys are personally involved, and happens up here in New England a lot, you look in these sports pages, and these guys are actually in the hospitals, and you can see the love and caring, and you can't fake that kind of stuff, Chris. It's in the pictures, and these guys do it because they want to do it, not just that the front office says you have to be here at a certain time. You get the fact that a lot of these guys make surprise visits that they don't have to, and that goes beyond the checkbook and all the money. It's that these guys are really into the causes, and I think that's why you and I do this part of the show. It's not just sending a check or whatever. It's guys that really care and want to give back, and it's not just because an agent says they have to give back or anything like that.
Yeah, no, exactly right, Bob. And it's interesting that you bring that up, right? Because, in all of the wonderful conversations, that we've had with Leigh Steinberg over the years, that is one thing that he has been a huge proponent of, going all the way back, to his first client, Steve Barkowski, back in the 70s, right? To start a foundation and to give back and to be a part of the communities. That's something that he was, very big about, continues to be to this day. But, you make a very good point, Bob, right? You can't fake this stuff. Right? Because if you were going to fake it, you would do what you just said. You just have someone stroke a check, and then you would claim, hey, I gave, X amount of dollars, to somebody else's foundation. Or, you would hear about the money donated to a foundation, but you wouldn't see the interactions. You wouldn't see, to your point, the pictures. You wouldn't see these guys doing commercials on TV. Those things, that's when it starts to feel, and people know when it's superficial, when it's real, and when it's not. I mean, a guy like Greg Olson coming in on tutus for Tuesday, right? To lift the morale of these kids, dealing with the heart conditions and that sort of thing. That comes straight from the heart. You're not doing that as just a walkthrough and hey, someone snap my picture here so I can get on to my life. Right? There's a guy, in Russell Wilson, the same, right? And so many of the guys that we spotlight here every week on Thursday Night Tailgate. This isn't fake stuff. These are guys getting involved, doing the things that they need to do, giving back, paying it forward, and really, getting involved. And like I say in here, in Greg Olson's example, with the families themselves, because the families have an impact. Right? I mean, think about the concern and the stress and the things you're under when you find out that your newborn baby has a heart defect. Right? He's getting involved with the families, calling them, seeing how they're doing, seeing what's going on, making sure he's a part of their lives, and making sure that that he can share the experiences that he went through with his own son. So, right? You're exactly right, Bob. This goes way beyond just a dollar figure. This is time and real emotions as well, which is great. That's why we do this segment every week here on TNT.
Yeah, and I think you would agree, Chris. There are many people we can spotlight on, and even if guys weren't directly involved, we'd still have to, give them their props for being financially responsible to do what they can But I think the research we do, and we finally come up with a guy we want to spotlight. We want a guy that's not just there from afar, like you said. We want a guy actively involved, and I don't remember too many people that we've spotlighted that aren't totally actively hands-on, and that's what we want. Again, like I said, I think every athlete at a very high level can put together a foundation within a day or two and start throwing money around there. But we can tell the guys that really, really care, not that they mostly, all of them don't, but like you said, a guy like Leigh Steinberg. And, Chris, I read today that his charities of guys that he's represented have given, now we're approaching $1 billion, Chris. I think it's over $600-700 million. Can you imagine what if Leigh does nothing the rest of his life? His clients have donated about $700 million to charities, and I don't know if you can top that for humanitarianism when you think about it. So that's why this segment's so great. It's there's so much stuff that needs to come out. That gets buried in the middle of the sports section or not even in the sports section in lieu of the garbage that we see about domestic violence and your incidents like that. So it's very special for me, and I like to recognize, as you know, various acts of kindness every day, and this portion of the show is just incredible.
There you go. All right, folks, it is time for Bob and I to put a bow on this episode of Thursday Night Tailgate. Our thanks again to Head Coach Dan Reeves, Tony Collins, Head Coach Ray Goff, Super Agent Leigh Steinberg for joining us tonight. And, Bob, always the greatest privilege to spend my time with you, my friend.
Oh, and again, ending the show on such a positive note, but it's a positive as the two of us interact during the week. It's always great, Chris, and I'm fortunate to work with you.
I appreciate you saying that. All right, folks, next week we're actually off. So we're taking a week off next week. We'll be back with you on November the 17th. And when we come back, our guests are going to be former Browns and Broncos linebacker Andre Davis. Been far too long since Andre has joined us. Mm-hmm. Former Jaguars quarterback Quinn Gray going to be back with us, as will TNT Hall of Famer and stats guru Russell Baxter. And a guy who always brings a lot of enthusiasm to the show is former Dolphins tight end Randy McMichael. He'll be back with us as well. Talk a little Georgia football with him, I'm sure. And, of course, former Patriots running back Tony Collins will be here with our 5-star picks of the week. So going to be a lot of fun when we come back, and we hope you'll join us as well. Want to remind everybody how you can follow us on social media. Please visit our Facebook page, Thursday Night Tailgate. Got a Facebook page. Give us a like. That's very important to us as well. Bob, as he mentioned a moment ago, he and I both have our individual Facebook pages as well. On Twitter, you can find me at CT-mascaro. Bob is at bob_Lazzari, and the show is at TNT Podcast. Plus, you can stream or download any of our archive episodes for free, folks, by going to great podcasting sites like Podbean. So great those folks have been to us. Great supporters of the show. Can't thank them enough for all that they have done for us. Our website as well, ThursdayNightTailgate.com. You can also stream the show on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, Spreaker, Stitcher, Audio Boom, Player.fm, SoundCloud. We're all over the net. And if there's a favorite app that you have that you like to stream content on and we're not on it, please let us know. We'll make sure we get on there for you. Bob, take us home, my friend.
All right, Chris. It's always been a pleasure. And our thanks go out to our announcer, Joe Lajanusa, for the great job he does with our weekly intro and ads, and to James Brocato and all the guys from Painted Faces for our upcoming outro music. On behalf of myself and Chris, we thank everyone tonight for listening. We appreciate you the most. Until next week, good night, Kevin. We miss you.